The Awakening. In the dim light of a hospital room, the steady beeping of machines marked the passage of time. Mercy General Hospital had become a second home to the Johnson family, a place filled with both hope and heartache. For 5 long years, Layla Johnson lay in a coma, her small body lying still under the bright white sheets, untouched by the world outside. The vibrant murals painted on the walls, colorful rainbows, playful animals, and bright flowers, seemed to mock the stillness of her slumber. Danielle Johnson, Layla's mother, sat beside her daughter, clutching her hand, as if it were the only tether to reality she had left. The weight of sleepless nights and worry etched deep lines into her face. With each passing day, the flicker of hope she had once nurtured began to dim, yet she refused to let go. She believed in the power of love and the strength of her daughter's spirit. In those quiet moments, she spoke to Layla, sharing stories of her day, recounting the adventures they used to have, and reminding her of the dreams they had planned together. "Layla, sweetie," she whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "If you can hear me, I want you to know that we're all waiting for you. Your friends miss you. And so does your dad. We believe you're going to wake up any day now." Little did Danielle know, Layla could hear her. In the depths of her unconscious mind, Layla floated between 2 worlds. She could sense the warmth of her mother's love and the sound of her soothing voice. But she was trapped in a fog, unable to respond, unable to break through the barrier separating her from reality. One crisp autumn morning, everything changed. The sun poured through the window, casting a golden hue over the room. As Danielle sat reading her book, a sudden change filled the air. It was a subtle shift, almost imperceptible, but it felt electric. The heart monitor, usually rhythmic and steady, began to spike erratically. Panic flooded Danielle's heart as she leaped to her feet, her eyes wide with fear. "Help! Someone, please!" she cried out, her voice echoing in the sterile space. Within moments, nurses rushed in, their professionalism cutting through Danielle's panic. They quickly assessed the situation, adjusting the machines and checking Layla's vitals. But Danielle barely noticed them. Her focus was solely on her daughter. Would this be the moment they had all been waiting for? Then it happened. A soft gasp escaped Layla's lips, and her eyelids fluttered. For a brief moment, her dark eyelashes brushed against her pale cheeks as she stirred, breaking the hold of the coma. Danielle held her breath, heart pounding in her chest. She leaned closer, her heart racing with hope. "Layla, honey, can you hear me?" she asked, her voice trembling with anticipation. Slowly, Layla's eyes opened, revealing deep brown irises that shimmered with confusion and fear. She blinked several times, adjusting to the brightness of the room. As her gaze met her mother's, a flicker of recognition passed through her, but something else lingered beneath the surface, an expression of terror that made Danielle's heart drop. "Mom." Layla's voice was barely a whisper, fragile and hoarse. It was as if the sound itself was unfamiliar to her, like a distant echo that had been buried deep within her mind. "Yes, baby, it's me. You're awake," Danielle exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her face. She squeezed Layla's hand, feeling the warmth of life return to her daughter. But the joy was short-lived as she noticed the flicker of fear in Layla's eyes. "What happened?" Layla's voice trembled. "Where am I?" "You're in the hospital, sweetheart. You've been in a coma for 5 years after an accident. But you're back now. You're safe." Danielle struggled to contain her emotions, the overwhelming relief battling with the reality of their situation. Layla's brow furrowed as she processed her mother's words. The weight of her memories came crashing down. Suddenly, she recalled fragmented images, flashes of laughter, the scent of flowers, and the sound of her mother's soothing voice. But lurking in the shadows of her mind were darker memories, whispers of a conversation that made her blood run cold. "Mom." Layla hesitated, her voice quivering. I heard something. While I was asleep. Something terrible." Danielle's heart raced, a sense of dread washing over her. What did you hear, sweetheart? Whatever it is, you can tell me. Layla's eyes widened, tears brimming as the memories flooded back, pulling her into a whirlwind of fear and confusion. I heard people talking. About me. About something they did. It was scary. As the doctor entered the room, he noticed the shift in the atmosphere. "What's going on?" he asked, his brows furrowing with concern. Layla looked up at him, her eyes wide and pleading. "I need to tell you something. It's important." The doctor leaned closer, his expression serious. "Okay, Layla. Take your time. What did you hear?" "I heard them say that I was never supposed to wake up. They thought I was gone for good," she stammered, the words tumbling from her lips like stones. "And I overheard them talking about an accident. Something they did to me." The doctor exchanged a glance with Danielle, a mix of concern and urgency in his eyes. "This is very serious, Layla. Can you remember any details? Any names?" Layla shook her head, feeling a knot of fear tighten in her stomach. "I don't know. It was dark, just voices. But they were scared. I could feel it." Danielle's heart sank as the implications of Layla's words settled over her like a heavy fog. What had happened to her daughter? And who were these people Layla mentioned? "Call 911, the doctor instructed his nurse, his voice firm and steady. "We need to ensure her safety and investigate this immediately." As the nurse dashed out of the room, Layla clutched her mother's hand tighter, the fear palpable in her trembling fingers. Danielle's heart raced as she faced the reality of her daughter's revelation. In that moment, a fire ignited within her, a fierce determination to protect her child at all costs. "Layla," she whispered, leaning in closer. "You're safe now. We're going to figure this out together. I promise." But as the sirens wailed in the distance, a sense of foreboding washed over them. The journey ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. Layla's awakening was just the beginning of a battle that would challenge everything they thought they knew. The clock ticked away the moments as they waited, each second stretching into an eternity. With each heartbeat, they drew closer to uncovering the truth, a truth that could change their lives forever. Little did they know, the shadows of the past were looming closer, ready to unveil the secrets hidden within Layla's silence. Shadows of the past. The hospital room buzzed with activity as medical staff moved with urgency, their expressions a blend of concern and professionalism. Outside the door, the faint sound of sirens grew louder, heralding the arrival of the authorities. For Layla and her mother, time felt suspended, each moment stretching into an agonizing eternity. Danielle held her daughter's hand tightly, her heart racing with fear and determination. "You're going to be okay, Layla," she reassured, though her voice trembled. "You're so brave for telling me this. We'll get to the bottom of it together." Layla's wide eyes searched her mother's face, seeking comfort in the midst of turmoil. "But Mom, what if they come back?" she whispered, a shiver running through her. "What if they know I heard them?" The thought made Danielle's stomach churn. What kind of people would do something so cruel to a child? As the doctor prepared for the arrival of the police, he instructed Layla to remain calm and to take deep breaths. Moments later, the door swung open, and 2 police officers entered the room, their expressions serious but gentle. Officer Thompson, a tall man with kind eyes, approached Layla, crouching down to her level. "Hi there, Layla. I'm Officer Thompson. I understand you've been through a lot. Can you tell me what you remember?" Layla hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She glanced at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. I heard a conversation," she began, her voice shaky. "It was about me. They thought I wouldn't wake up. They said something bad happened, something they did to me." The officers exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. Officer Thompson leaned in closer, his voice soft but firm. "You're doing great, Layla. Can you remember anything else? Any names or places?" "I wish I could," she replied, tears glistening in her eyes. but it was just voices, like I was trapped in a dark room and couldn't see them. They sounded scared, like they were afraid of getting caught. Officer Martinez, the other officer, took a step forward, his demeanor calm and reassuring. "Layla, I need you to know that you're safe now. We're going to protect you. Can you tell us about the accident? What do you remember before you fell asleep?" Layla closed her eyes, trying to piece together the fragmented memories. "I remember playing in the park," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was sunny, and I was with my friends. Then, I don't know, it's like everything just went dark." Danielle's heart ached at the thought of her daughter's innocence being shattered in such a traumatic way. "You don't have to worry about it right now, sweetheart," she said, her voice soothing. "You've been so strong. We'll figure it out together." Officer Thompson nodded, recognizing the emotional toll this was taking on both mother and daughter. "Layla, we're going to do everything we can to find out what happened. If you think of anything else, no matter how small, please let us know." Just then, a soft knock on the door interrupted the conversation. A nurse entered, her expression a mix of professionalism and empathy. "Excuse me, I need to check Layla's vitals," she said gently, glancing at the officers. "Is that all right?" "Of course," Officer Thompson replied, stepping back to give her space. As the nurse conducted her checks, Layla's thoughts raced. What had she overheard? Who were those people? Once the nurse finished, she stepped aside, allowing Officer Thompson to continue. "Layla, while we're here, can you tell us anything about your life before the accident? Friends, family, anything that might help us understand what happened?" Layla took a deep breath, trying to gather her thoughts. "I had a best friend named Maya. We did everything together, riding bikes, having sleepovers, and making up stories. I miss her." A pang of longing washed over her, and she felt a lump in her throat. Danielle squeezed her hand, trying to convey strength through the gesture. "Maya loves you too, sweetie. I'm sure she's been thinking about you every day." As the conversation continued, Officer Thompson took notes, careful to document every detail. "We'll reach out to your school and find out who your friends are," he said, glancing up from his notebook. "If Maya is still around, we'll make sure to connect you too. You deserve that." Just then, the door opened again, this time revealing Dr. Reynolds, Layla's physician. He wore a serious expression, and the air in the room shifted. "Layla, can I have a word with you and your mother?" he asked, his voice steady. Danielle nodded, feeling a sense of foreboding. "Of course, doctor. Is everything all right?" Dr. Reynolds motioned for them to follow him into the hallway, away from the officers. Once outside, he turned to them, his expression grave. "Layla, I need to discuss something important regarding your case. What you've shared with the officers is concerning, and I believe we need to take immediate action." "Is it about the accident?" Layla asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "Are there more people involved?" "Not just the accident," Dr. Reynolds replied, his voice firm. "There's something we need to address about your medical records. While we were reviewing them, we found inconsistencies, records that indicate you were receiving treatment for injuries that don't align with the initial report." "What do you mean?" Danielle asked, her heart racing. "What kind of injuries?" Dr. Reynolds took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "It appears that there may have been additional trauma that wasn't disclosed at the time of your accident. We need to investigate this further. It's crucial to understand what happened to you, Layla, not only for your recovery, but also for your safety." Layla's eyes widened in fear. "You mean there was more? Is that why I was in a coma?" "We need to conduct a thorough examination and possibly additional imaging to understand the full extent of your injuries," Dr. Reynolds explained. "It's imperative that we uncover the truth to ensure your safety moving forward." Danielle's heart sank as she processed his words. What if it's connected to what Layla heard? What if someone is trying to cover something up? Dr. Reynolds nodded, his expression serious. "That's a possibility we can't ignore. I recommend that we work closely with the police. They have the resources to investigate this thoroughly. Your safety, Lila, is our top priority." As they returned to the room, Layla's mind raced with fear and uncertainty. The world around her felt like a jigsaw puzzle, with pieces scattered and waiting to be assembled. What had happened to her? Who were the people she overheard? Officer Thompson was still in the room, speaking with Officer Martinez about their next steps. As Layla settled back into her bed, she felt a sense of resolve build within her. If there was something dark lurking beneath the surface of her memories, she would confront it. "Mom," she said softly, her voice steady. "I want to help. I want to find out the truth, no matter how scary it is." Danielle looked at her daughter, pride swelling in her heart. "You're the bravest girl I know, Lila. We'll face this together. I promise." With determination, Lila took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The road to recovery was no longer just about healing from her physical injuries. It was now intertwined with unraveling the mystery of her past. As the police officers prepared to gather more information, Layla's thoughts drifted to Maya, her best friend, and the laughter they had shared. She vowed to find her again, to reconnect, and to uncover the secrets hidden in the shadows of her past. Little did she know, the journey would lead her to truths that would challenge her resilience and ultimately shape her future. With her mother by her side, Lila felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. The battle ahead would be fierce, but together they would confront whatever lay ahead. And perhaps, just perhaps, the darkness would give way to the light of truth, bringing healing not only to Lila, but to those who had wronged her. Unraveling secrets. The following days felt like a whirlwind for Lila and her mother. As the investigation intensified, both of them found themselves caught in a storm of emotions, fear, confusion, and a glimmer of hope. The hospital room, once a sanctuary of healing, had transformed into a hub of inquiries and interviews. Each new visitor brought another layer of uncertainty, adding to the weight on Layla's small shoulders. After the initial conversation with the police, Dr. Reynolds arranged for Layla to undergo a series of tests and imaging scans to identify any underlying injuries that might explain the inconsistencies in her medical records. Each time she was wheeled down the sterile corridors, her heart raced with anxiety. What if the tests revealed something horrible? What if they opened up wounds that had been buried for too long? During one of these procedures, Layla found herself in an MRI machine, the metallic chamber swallowing her whole. She remembered her mother's gentle touch and soothing voice as they prepared for the scan. "Just breathe, sweetheart. I'm right here waiting for you," Danielle had reassured her, offering a smile that masked her own fear. As the machine hummed and buzzed, Layla closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise. It was in this moment of solitude that her mind wandered back to the last day she remembered before the accident. She could still picture the vibrant park, the laughter of her friends echoing around her, and the warmth of the sun on her skin. But as she delved deeper, a shadowy figure emerged in her memory, someone standing at the edge of the playground, watching. The image faded as the machine beeped, signaling the end of the scan. Lila blinked back tears as she thought about the stranger. Who were they? And why did they seem so familiar yet so far away? After the tests, Lila returned to her room to find her mother reading a book, her face etched with concern. "How did it go, honey?" Danielle asked, setting the book aside and focusing her full attention on her daughter. "I don't know. I guess we'll find out soon," Lila replied, feeling a mixture of relief and dread. Just then, there was a soft knock on the door, and Officer Thompson entered, his demeanor serious but compassionate. "Layla, I wanted to check in on you," he said, his voice warm. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay," she answered, trying to muster a smile. "Just waiting for more tests." "I know it's a lot to handle, but you're doing an incredible job," Officer Thompson encouraged. "I also wanted to follow up on what you heard while you were in your coma. Have you remembered anything else?" Layla bit her lip, the weight of his question heavy on her. "I keep thinking about that day at the park. I remember. I think I saw someone looking at me, It felt like they were waiting for something. But I can't remember what happened next. Officer Thompson nodded, taking notes. That's important, Lila. Every detail counts. If you see someone you recognize, you need to tell us immediately. We're doing everything we can to protect you. The conversation was interrupted as Dr. Reynolds entered, holding a file in his hands. Layla, I have the results of your tests, he said, his expression grave. Danielle's heart sank, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Is everything okay? She asked, her voice trembling. Let's sit down, Dr. Reynolds said, motioning for them to take a seat. The test showed some abnormalities. We discovered old injuries that suggest you may have been a victim of abuse prior to your coma. What do you mean? Layla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How could that happen? Danielle felt a wave of anger surge through her, but she kept her focus on her daughter. Layla, listen to Dr. Reynolds. We're going to get through this together. Dr. Reynolds continued. The injuries indicate trauma that doesn't align with an accident. There are signs of physical harm that suggest someone may have hurt you. This is serious, and it's imperative that we address it. Layla's world began to tilt, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. The memories she had tried to block were now forcing their way into her mind. The figure at the park, the whispered conversation. Was it possible that someone she knew had hurt her? Are you saying that I was hurt on purpose? Layla asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Dr. Reynolds nodded solemnly. It's a possibility we can't ignore. But I want you to know that you're safe here, and we will do everything in our power to protect you and uncover the truth. As the weight of his words settled in, a sense of determination ignited within Layla. She had to know what had happened, not just for herself, but for the sake of others who might be in danger. I want to help, she declared, surprising herself with the strength of her voice. I want to find out who did this. Officer Thompson smiled, a look of admiration in his eyes. That's the spirit, Layla. We need brave individuals like you to help us bring those responsible to justice. Every small detail matters. With renewed resolve, Layla decided that she wouldn't shy away from the truth, no matter how painful it might be. She had endured 5 years of silence, and now it was time to break that silence. I'll do whatever it takes, she said, looking at her mother. I want to make sure no one else gets hurt. Danielle's heart swelled with pride. You're so brave, my sweet girl. We'll face this together, just like we always have. You're not alone. As the hours turned into days, the investigation began to unfold. Officer Thompson and Officer Martinez worked diligently, interviewing Layla's friends, family, and neighbors. They traced back every moment leading up to the accident, seeking connections and uncovering potential suspects. Each evening, they would return to the hospital with new updates, sharing their findings with Layla and Danielle. Layla learned about the support group forming around her case. People from the community rallied to help, offering their time and resources to uncover the truth. Maya, her best friend, had been a key part of the community's efforts. She visited Layla every day, bringing along stories from school, photos of their time together, and a promise that they would face whatever lay ahead as a team. Layla, we're in this together, Maya insisted, her voice fierce. I won't let you face this alone. You're my best friend, and I'll always be here for you. The bond between the two girls deepened, fueled by the strength they drew from one another. Layla began to share her dreams for the future, dreams of becoming a veterinarian, of helping animals and people alike. Maya listened intently, her eyes sparkling with admiration. As they shared stories, Layla felt herself opening up about her fears and anxieties. What if they come after me again? She asked one day, her voice trembling. What if they know I'm awake? Maya shook her head fiercely. They won't. You have everyone on your side now. You're stronger than you know. We'll keep you safe. You just have to focus on getting better, and we'll take care of the rest. Emboldened by her friend's unwavering support, Layla pushed through the pain of her recovery, participating in physical therapy and cognitive exercises. She learned to walk again, took baby steps that felt monumental, and rediscovered her passion for art, filling sketchbooks with drawings of her hopes and dreams. But the nagging whispers of her past remained, haunting her during quiet moments. On particularly tough days, Layla found herself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing. Who had hurt her? What secrets lay hidden in the recesses of her mind? Then, one evening, while staring at the stars from her hospital room window, she felt a surge of determination. "I will find the truth," she whispered to herself. "I owe it to everyone who has believed in me." The days turned into weeks, and just as the case began to unfold, an unexpected twist emerged. Officer Thompson entered the room with a serious expression, holding a file in his hands. "Layla, we need to talk," he said, his tone grave. "About what?" she asked, her heart racing. "We've made some progress in our investigation, but we need your help with something crucial," he replied, glancing at her mother. "We believe we've identified a potential suspect, but we need to confirm it. We need you to look at some photos and tell us if you recognize anyone." Layla's breath caught in her throat. "You mean someone I might know?" "Yes," Officer Thompson replied, his gaze steady. "It's vital we approach this carefully. Your safety is our priority, but your memory may be key to understanding what happened." As she sat up in bed, a wave of anxiety washed over her. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the opportunity to reclaim her story and confront the darkness that had tried to consume her. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm. "I want to see the photos." "All right, but remember, you don't have to do this if you're not ready," Officer Thompson reassured her. With her heart racing, Layla nodded, ready to step into the unknown. This was her chance to unravel the secrets of her past, to confront the shadows lurking in her memory. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she also felt the strength of those who loved her, supporting her as she took this crucial step toward healing and justice. As Officer Thompson laid out the photos in front of her, Layla took a deep breath and focused on the faces staring back at her. Each image felt like a puzzle piece waiting to click into place, and in that moment, she realized that she wasn't just uncovering the past. She was reclaiming her future, and she was ready to fight for it. The faces of the past. The tension in the hospital room was palpable as Officer Thompson laid out the photographs in front of Layla. Each image felt like a doorway into her past, a key to unlocking the memories that had long been buried beneath the surface. Her heart raced, a mixture of fear and determination coursing through her veins. "Remember, Layla," Officer Thompson said gently, "take your time. Only point out those you recognize. There's no rush." Danielle sat beside her, her hand clasping Layla's tightly, providing a comforting anchor. "You're so brave, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Whatever happens, I'm right here with you." Layla nodded, her throat dry with anxiety. She looked down at the first photograph, a blurry image of a man with unkempt hair and a shadow of a beard, standing in the distance at the park. Her heart skipped a beat. I think I know him," she said, her voice trembling. "He was at the park the day of my accident." Officer Thompson leaned closer, taking notes. "Can you remember anything specific about him? What he did or said?" Layla's mind raced as she tried to piece together the fragmented memories. "I remember feeling uneasy, like he was watching me. I was playing with Maya, and he just stood there, staring." "That's good, Layla. You're doing great," Officer Thompson encouraged. He moved to the next photo, this one of a woman with striking green eyes and dark hair. The moment Layla saw her, a chill ran down her spine. "I recognize her too," Layla whispered, her voice barely audible. "She was with the man. They were together that day. I saw them talking, but I couldn't hear what they were saying." Danielle's grip on Layla's hand tightened, her expression a mix of concern and pride. "You're incredible, honey. You're piecing it together." The officer nodded, jotting down notes with swift precision. "This is crucial information, Layla. Can you remember any specific details about their conversation? Anything at all? Layla closed her eyes, trying to summon the images that danced just beyond her reach. I remember feeling scared, and I heard a voice saying something about the plan and the delivery, but it didn't make sense to me at the time. Officer Thompson exchanged glances with his partner, Officer Martinez, who had been quietly observing. "What do you think the plan referred to?" he asked, leaning in closer. "I don't know," Layla admitted, her heart pounding. But it felt important, like it was something dangerous. "Thank you, Layla," Officer Thompson said, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're helping us more than you realize. We're going to do everything we can to find out what was happening that day." With a deep breath, Layla focused on the next photo. This one was of a group of people laughing together at a barbecue. A familiar face caught her attention. Maya's older brother, Jake. "I know him." "That's Jake," she exclaimed. "He was at the barbecue my family went to last summer." "Okay, that's great," Officer Martinez said, her voice calm and steady. "Do you remember anything else about that day?" Layla's mind raced as she recalled the warm summer afternoon, the sound of laughter and music filling the air. "I remember playing catch with Jake. And then, I think I saw the same man from the park there too. He was standing off to the side, watching." "Did anything happen?" Officer Thompson pressed, his eyes keenly focused on her. "No, nothing happened. But I remember feeling uncomfortable," she replied, her brows furrowing in thought. "I didn't like how he looked at me." With each photograph, Layla felt as if she were peeling back layers of her past, revealing pieces of a puzzle that had remained hidden for far too long. Each face brought with it a flood of memories, emotions swirling within her as she sifted through the chaos of her mind. As they finished going through the photographs, Officer Thompson leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Layla, you've done an incredible job. Your memories may hold the key to understanding what really happened that day. But we need to proceed carefully. Some of the individuals we're looking into may be dangerous." "Dangerous?" Layla echoed, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" "We're still piecing together the events surrounding your accident," Officer Thompson explained. "There are connections to some individuals that have been involved in illicit activities. We want to ensure your safety while we continue the investigation." Layla felt a shiver run down her spine at the thought of danger lurking just beyond the hospital walls. But she also felt a surge of empowerment. This was her chance to make a difference, to uncover the truth that had long eluded her. "I want to help," she declared, her voice firm. Daniel's eyes softened with pride. "You're so strong, Layla. We'll figure this out together. We won't let fear stop us." As the officers left the room, Layla turned to her mother, a newfound determination in her eyes. "Mom, I want to remember more. I have to understand what really happened that day." "Are you sure, sweetheart?" Danielle asked, concern flickering across her face. "I don't want you to put yourself in danger." Layla nodded resolutely. "I need to do this. I can't let those people get away with what they did." With that, the two of them began to brainstorm ways to unlock the remaining fragments of Layla's memory. They decided to revisit places from Layla's past. Spots in the park where she played, the barbecue where she'd seen Jake, even the school she had attended before the accident. Perhaps by walking those familiar paths, Layla could trigger additional memories and piece together the missing parts of her story. The next day, with a sense of excitement mixed with anxiety, they set out for the park. The sun shone brightly, casting warm rays of light that filtered through the trees, creating a picturesque scene that felt surreal after everything they had been through. As they approached the familiar playground, Layla's heart began to race. "Look, Layla," Danielle said, pointing toward the swings. "Do you remember playing there?" Layla squinted, searching her mind for any recollection. The swings swayed gently in the breeze, and the sound of children laughing echoed in the distance. "I think I do," she said hesitantly, "but it feels fuzzy, like a dream." They walked toward the swings, and Lila hesitated for a moment, remembering the weight of the past. As she sat down, the metal creaked under her weight, and she began to sway back and forth. With each gentle push, memories started to surface, like bubbles rising to the surface of a calm pond. "Just breathe, sweetheart," Danielle encouraged, standing nearby. "Take your time." As Layla swung, she closed her eyes, allowing her mind to drift. A scene from the past flickered before her, a sunny day at the park, the laughter of her friends filling the air. But then, she felt that unsettling presence again. The man from her memories stood there, his eyes fixed on her, and she could hear snippets of the conversation again, the plan, the delivery. Suddenly, she felt a jolt of fear course through her. "Mom," she cried out, eyes snapping open. "I remember more." Danielle rushed to her side, concern etched on her face. "What is it, honey?" Layla took a deep breath, her heart racing. "The man. He was talking about something dangerous. I think they were planning something terrible. I need to tell Officer Thompson." Danielle nodded, her eyes shining with pride. "You're doing so well, Lila. Let's get back to the hospital and tell them everything." The two of them hurried back to Mercy General Hospital, Layla's heart pounding with urgency. Each step felt like a leap toward understanding, toward justice. When they arrived at the hospital, they found Officer Thompson waiting for them. His face lit up when he saw them. "Layla, I'm glad you're back. Did you remember anything?" "Yes," Layla exclaimed, breathless with excitement. "I remember more about the man. He was talking about a plan. I think it was something bad, something he was going to do." "Okay, let's take this step by step," Officer Thompson said, leading them to a quiet room where they could talk. "What exactly did you hear?" As Layla recounted her fragmented memories, Officer Thompson listened intently, his expression focused. "This is crucial information, Layla. We're getting closer to understanding the full scope of what happened that day. You're very brave to share this." Layla felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time, she was taking control of her story, reclaiming her narrative. "I want to help stop whatever they were planning," she said, determination shining in her eyes. With every memory that surfaced, Layla began to feel a sense of purpose. She was no longer just a victim. She was a survivor, ready to confront the darkness of her past and fight for justice. And with her mother by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. But as Officer Thompson promised to investigate further, a lingering fear hung in the air. What if those responsible were still out there, waiting to silence her? As they finished their conversation, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that the fight was far from over. But she was ready for it. She was strong, she was brave, and she was determined to reclaim her life. And in that moment, she realized that her journey toward healing had only just begun. As they left the hospital, Layla took a deep breath, filled with hope. The past had its shadows, but it also held the promise of a brighter future, one where she could finally find peace and justice for all that had been lost. Confronting shadows. The days turned into a blur of hospital visits and therapy sessions, but for Layla, each moment was filled with purpose. With every memory she uncovered, she felt a sense of empowerment blossoming within her, like a flower breaking through the concrete. She was on a mission to reclaim her life, and nothing could stand in her way. After the emotional day at the park, Layla, now more determined than ever, met with Officer Thompson and his partner, Officer Martinez, in a small conference room at Mercy General Hospital. The sunlight poured in through the window, illuminating the sterile white walls and the modest table where they sat. "Layla," Officer Thompson began, "I want to emphasize how brave you've been throughout this process. Your memories could help us prevent something terrible from happening." "I just want to help," Layla replied, her voice steady. "I want to make sure that what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else." Danielle, sitting beside her, squeezed her hand. "You're so strong, honey. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." With a nod from Officer Thompson, they spread out maps of the city and photographs of the individuals Lila had identified. Based on your memories, we've been able to identify a few locations connected to those people, he explained. This could be where they're planning their next move. Layla's heart raced at the thought of being part of something so significant. What do you need me to do? She asked, her determination shining through. We need you to help us gather more information, Officer Martinez said. We believe these individuals may be connected to a larger operation, and the more we know, the better we can protect you and others. Layla nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes. As they began discussing their plan, Layla felt a sense of camaraderie building between her and the officers. They were not just law enforcement, they were allies in her quest for justice. She could feel her heart beating faster, fueled by the adrenaline of the impending challenge. Officer Thompson outlined their plan. They would stake out a few locations known to be frequented by the individuals in the photographs. We want you to observe, but remember, your safety is our top priority, he warned. If you ever feel uncomfortable or scared, let us know immediately. With that, they finalized their plan for the following weekend. Layla would accompany the officers to a local park known for attracting a particular crowd. As the day approached, her anticipation grew, mingling with the underlying anxiety that she could encounter those who had hurt her. The sun rose bright and clear on the day of the stakeout, casting a warm glow over the park. Layla, dressed in a comfortable outfit, felt a sense of purpose coursing through her. She knew that confronting her past would not be easy, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. When they arrived at the park, Officer Thompson and Officer Martinez laid out the details. We'll be watching from a distance, Officer Thompson explained. You'll have a clear view of the entrance. If you see anyone from the photos, just signal us. Layla took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. What if I can't recognize them? She asked. Trust your instincts, Officer Martinez replied. If someone feels off or triggers a memory, let us know. As they settled into their spot, Layla's heart raced with anticipation. The park was bustling with activity, families picnicking, children playing, and dogs chasing after frisbees. She tried to focus on the laughter and joy surrounding her, but the fear of encountering her past loomed large in her mind. Hours passed as they observed the park, but the individuals from the photographs remained elusive. Layla felt a mixture of disappointment and relief. While she wanted to confront her fears, part of her was grateful for the reprieve. Just as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting a golden hue across the park, Layla noticed a group of teenagers congregating near the entrance. They were laughing and chatting animatedly, but one boy caught her attention. He had dark hair, and though his face wasn't entirely familiar, something about his demeanor sent a chill down her spine. That's him, Layla whispered, her voice trembling with recognition. I think that's the man from the park. Officer Thompson's eyes sharpened with focus. Are you sure? I'm not positive, but it feels right, Layla replied, her heart racing as she pointed discreetly toward the group. Officer Martinez quickly pulled out her camera, capturing images of the boy. Let's get a closer look. Stay alert, Layla, she said, her tone serious. Layla felt a surge of adrenaline as they moved to a better vantage point. She could see the boy's face more clearly now, and as he laughed with his friends, a dark memory flickered in her mind, the feeling of being watched, the unease she had felt that day at the park. This is it, she thought. This is my chance. As the officers began to gather more evidence, Layla's heart pounded. She wanted to run toward the group, confront them, but she remembered Officer Thompson's warning. Be careful, she reminded herself. This isn't just about you. Suddenly, the boy's laughter faded, and he glanced around, his gaze locking onto Layla's. She felt exposed, vulnerable under his stare, and a shiver ran down her spine. In that moment, she knew she had to trust her instincts. Officer Thompson, Layla whispered urgently, her voice barely above a whisper. He's looking at me. I don't like it. Let's back away, Officer Thompson said, guiding her gently away from the group. We'll regroup and come up with a new plan. Just as they were about to retreat, the boy spoke to his friends, gesturing toward Layla and the officers. Hey, what are those people doing? He called out, a hint of suspicion in his voice. Layla's heart sank. They know we're watching, she breathed. Stay calm, Officer Martinez instructed, her eyes darting between the group and Layla. We'll monitor the situation. As the tension hung thick in the air, Layla felt a wave of emotions wash over her: fear, anger, and an unyielding determination. She wouldn't allow her past to control her any longer. This was her moment to take a stand. Suddenly, the boy turned and walked away from his friends, heading toward the park's edge. Layla's instincts kicked in, and she felt the pull to follow him. I have to see where he goes, she insisted. Layla, no, Officer Thompson warned, but she was already moving, her feet carrying her forward. The boy glanced back, his expression shifting from curiosity to alarm as he spotted her following him. He took off running, and Layla's heart raced as she chased after him, fueled by a mix of fear and adrenaline. Stop, she shouted, her voice echoing through the park. I need to talk to you. The boy dashed through the crowd, weaving between picnicking families and children playing. Layla pushed herself to keep up, her legs pumping with determination. She couldn't let him escape, not when she felt so close to uncovering the truth. Just as she thought she was losing him, he stumbled, glancing over his shoulder. In that split second, Layla saw an opening. She lunged forward, grabbing his arm and forcing him to a stop. Let go of me, he shouted, trying to shake her off, but Layla held on tightly. I know what you did, she yelled, her voice steady despite her racing heart. You were at the park that day. The boy's expression shifted from anger to confusion. What are you talking about? I don't know you. Stop lying, Layla insisted, refusing to back down. I saw you with that man. I overheard you. Just then, Officer Thompson and Officer Martinez caught up, their expressions a mix of surprise and concern. Layla, step back, Officer Thompson commanded, taking control of the situation. As he approached, the boy's bravado faltered. I don't know what she's talking about, he protested, looking from Layla to the officers. Then why were you at the park? Officer Thompson asked, his voice calm but authoritative. The boy shifted nervously, glancing around as if searching for a way out. I was just hanging out with my friends. We didn't do anything. Layla, do you recognize him from the photos? Officer Martinez asked, her camera ready. Layla's heart raced. She had the chance to confront her fears head-on, to stand up for herself and others who had been hurt. No, I don't recognize him from the pictures, she said, her voice steady. But I know he's connected to something dangerous. Officer Thompson stepped forward, maintaining eye contact with the boy. We're going to need to ask you some questions about your activities around the park and your association with certain individuals. It's best if you cooperate. The boy's bravado crumbled, and he glanced nervously between Layla and the officers. I didn't do anything wrong, he protested, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his unease. As the officers began to question him, Layla felt a mixture of satisfaction and relief. She had taken a step toward confronting her past and was doing her part to seek justice for what had happened to her. She could see how far she had come from that frightened little girl who had been trapped in a hospital bed for 5 long years. But as the sun set behind the trees, casting long shadows across the park, Layla realized that while this was a victory, the battle was far from over. She had uncovered just one thread of a much larger web, and she was determined to keep unraveling it. With the officers at her side and the memories flooding back, Layla knew she was ready to confront whatever darkness lay ahead. She was a survivor, and her story was only just beginning. A new dawn. The following days felt surreal for Layla as she continued her journey toward healing and justice. With every passing hour, she grew more confident, empowered by the support of her mother, the officers, and the community rallying around her. The park incident had been a significant turning point, igniting a fire within her that she never knew existed. But even as the dust settled, Lila couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of something much deeper and darker. Back at Mercy General Hospital, Layla began to meet regularly with Officer Thompson and Officer Martinez. They shared updates about their investigation into the individuals she had identified, revealing a web of connections that extended far beyond the park. As they spoke, Layla felt a sense of responsibility growing within her. She wasn't just a victim. She was becoming a force for change. "Layla," Officer Martinez said one afternoon, looking intently at her, "we've made some progress. The information you provided led us to uncover a network that was involved in some serious illegal activities, including trafficking. We need your help to identify a few more people." Layla's heart raced at the weight of their words. "What can I do?" she asked, determination shining in her eyes. "We have a list of individuals we'd like you to look at," Officer Thompson replied. "These people may be connected to the same group. If you recognize any of them, it could help us build a case." Sitting at a table surrounded by sketches and photographs, Layla felt a mixture of fear and resolve. The reality of what she was facing began to settle in, but she refused to let it intimidate her. "I'll help however I can," she said firmly. Days turned into weeks as Layla worked alongside the officers, reviewing images and talking through her memories. Each session pushed her to delve deeper into her past and confront the haunting fragments that had resurfaced since waking from her coma. But instead of feeling overwhelmed, Layla found strength in the vulnerability of her truth. She was uncovering her story, piece by piece. One afternoon, as they sifted through more photographs, Layla recognized a familiar face, a woman with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. "I know her," she exclaimed, pointing to the image. "She was there that day. She was with the man who—" Officer Martinez leaned closer, taking in Layla's reaction. "Are you sure, Layla? This is crucial information." "Yes," Layla insisted, recalling snippets of conversation that echoed in her mind. "I remember hearing her talking to him. They were planning something terrible." Officer Thompson jotted down notes, excitement building in his eyes. "This could be the lead we need. We need to take this seriously. Your courage is helping us get closer to bringing these people to justice." With each session, Layla's memories flooded back, often accompanied by intense emotions. She had long grappled with the idea that sharing her experiences could help her heal, but now she understood the profound impact her voice could have in bringing about change. As they pieced together the puzzle, Officer Martinez reached out to local authorities and organized a sting operation. Layla would be crucial in identifying the individuals involved, but she wouldn't be alone. The officers ensured that safety protocols were in place to protect her throughout the process. The day of the operation arrived, and a mix of anticipation and anxiety coursed through Layla. She was no longer just a little girl waking from a coma. She was a warrior stepping into the light, ready to reclaim her narrative. Her mother, Danielle, stood by her side, offering unwavering support. "Remember, Layla," Danielle said, kneeling to meet her daughter's gaze. "You are stronger than you think. Trust yourself. You've come so far." With a deep breath, Layla nodded, feeling her heart steady. As they arrived at the location where the operation would take place, she took in the sight of the officers preparing, a flurry of movement and determination. Layla was positioned in a safe spot with a clear view of the entrance, her heart pounding as the minutes ticked by. She could feel the tension in the air, a palpable anticipation that made her pulse race. She reminded herself of the journey she had taken, from a scared girl in a hospital bed to a young woman about to stand up for herself and others. When the moment finally came, Layla spotted the woman from the photograph arriving. She looked different in person, more confident, maybe even cocky, but Layla could still see the darkness that lingered behind her eyes. "Is that her?" Officer Thompson whispered beside Layla, his voice low and steady. "Yes," Lila replied, her voice firm. "That's her." The officers sprang into action, communicating through their earpieces as they positioned themselves around the area. Layla felt a surge of adrenaline as she witnessed the meticulous planning unfold before her. Everything felt surreal, like a scene from a movie. But this was her life, and she was finally taking charge. The atmosphere shifted as more individuals arrived, and Layla's heart raced. She recognized one of the men from her past and realized just how intertwined her story was with this dangerous group. She felt a mix of fear and empowerment. "They're all here," she breathed, urgency lacing her words. As the operation kicked into high gear, the officers moved in, surrounding the individuals with precision. Layla watched as they apprehended the people she had helped identify, and the weight of what was happening hit her. This was the justice she had been fighting for, the chance to make sure her past didn't define her future. In the chaos that followed, the officers worked diligently to gather evidence, questioning the suspects and securing their connection to the criminal activities. Layla felt a swell of pride as she realized that she was not just a witness. She was an active participant in reshaping her destiny. As the dust settled and the suspects were taken away, Layla's heart swelled with a sense of accomplishment. She had faced her fears, confronted her past, and stood up for justice. The people who had once held power over her were now in the hands of those who would ensure they could no longer hurt anyone else. Returning home after the operation, Layla felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She was greeted by friends and family who had supported her throughout this journey. Her mother enveloped her in a warm embrace, tears glistening in her eyes. "You did it, Layla. I'm so proud of you." "Thank you, Mom," Layla replied, her voice filled with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you." As the evening sun set, casting a golden hue over their home, Layla reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She realized that while the scars of her past would always remain, they were no longer shackles that bound her. Instead, they were reminders of her strength and resilience. With her mother by her side and a supportive community rallying around her, Layla knew she was ready to embrace whatever came next. She had taken back her life, and as she closed her eyes that night, she felt a deep sense of peace settle in her heart. In the weeks that followed, Layla became an advocate for others who had experienced trauma. She spoke at schools and community centers, sharing her story with courage and grace. Her journey became a beacon of hope for those who felt lost or silenced, inspiring others to find their voices and reclaim their narratives. The tragic accident that had left her in a coma for 5 years had transformed her, molding her into someone stronger than she ever imagined possible. She understood that healing was not linear. It was a journey filled with ups and downs. But with each step forward, she grew more resilient. As she looked to the future, Layla felt empowered to chase her dreams. She began to explore her interests, from art to writing, allowing her creativity to flow freely. She found solace in expressing herself, channeling her experiences into something beautiful and meaningful. The community that had supported her throughout her journey continued to lift her up, reminding her that she was never alone. Together, they celebrated the victories, big and small, forging connections that would last a lifetime. Layla knew that her story was far from over. She had taken back control of her life, transformed her pain into purpose, and inspired others along the way. With every challenge she faced, she emerged stronger, ready to embrace the light and the love surrounding her. In that moment, under the soft glow of the moonlight, Layla felt a profound sense of hope. She was not just a survivor. She was a warrior, a beacon of light, and a testament to the power of resilience. The past had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. She was stepping into a future filled with promise, ready to make her mark on the world. And as she drifted off to sleep, she held on to the belief that no matter what darkness may come, she had the strength to rise above it all. Layla had found her voice, and it would echo through the hearts of those she touched, inspiring them to rise and reclaim their stories too.